The old model where you ship the wine and hope the market absorb it, it's not enough anymore.
Joining me in the hot seat today, we have Leonardo Mocetti. So after spending 8 years managing exports at Berlucchi, one of the main Franciacorta producers, Leonardo now manages sales and export at Castello di Meleto, one of the most historic wineries in the Chianti Classico region.
Wine tourism becomes a real commercial channel when it stops being only a visit and start producing a long-term value. What happens after? What's next? Does the guest remember the wine? Do they buy again? Do they join the wine club? Do they recommend the estate?
So Leonardo knows a thing or two about managing distributors, about scaling brands internationally, and especially about communicating wine abroad.
The producer is thinking in years, while the distributors is often forced to think in quarters, sometimes in months.
So in this episode, he shares his experience in working with importers and distributors, but also his views on marketing, building a brand through hospitality, and the actual relevance of trade shows.
A fair should not be a showroom. It should be a market intelligence tool. Vinitaly should be all year long.
Hey Leonardo, welcome on Dolia Talks.
Hi Giovanni, nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I would like to start actually from your career journey, because I think it's quite interesting. You moved from two very different wine regions, actually. So I think there's some learnings there that you can tell us. You moved from Franciacorta to Chianti. So two completely different wines, two completely different consumption types. So can you tell us a bit, first of all, what surprised you the most in this change? And also, what did you learn from one experience to the other?
Yes, indeed. There are two very different appellations, two very different area. I can tell you that what really stuck me moving from Franciacorta to Chianti Classico, I would say, is how different the competitive pressure feels. I mean, in Franciacorta, the challenge, it's very, let's say, external. You are in a relatively young denomination and you are constantly defining yourself against global sparkling wine categories. In Italy, maybe we perceive it less than how it is internationally, because the main competitor in Italy are mostly champagne. We can think about Prosecco or other Italian sparkling wine like category like Trento Doc or Altalanga or Oltre Papavese. While the competition globally, it's much tougher. You have also Cava, which in Italy is pretty difficult to find, but California sparkling as well, Cap from South Africa, Australian sparkling wine. So an entire ecosystem of different sparkling wines. So the work is very intentional for Franciacorta. You need to explain who you are, why you exist, where you sit, and why the buyer should make, let's say, room for you. Chianti Classico is completely different. The name is already known everywhere. In almost every mature wine market, buyers, sommelier, consumers, they all have already heard of Chianti Classico. So the issue is not awareness. The issue is interpretation. The appellation is extremely strong, but also very crowded. That also an important differentiation. You have different styles, different price points, different philosophies, and very different levels of ambition coexisting under the same name, Chianti Classico. That creates a sort of a paradox. Chianti Classico is very visible, but individual producers still need to fight very hard to be clearly understood. And this became even more evident to me after Vinitaly and after traveling across markets. Buyers today are not lacking options, for sure. They are overwhelmed by options, we can say. So they are not looking for another Chianti Classico to add. They are looking for a reason to choose one Chianti Classico over another. That's the reality. So the real shift for me is this. In Franciacorta, you fight to earn attention. In Chianti Classico, you fight more to justify selection. And in the current market where demand is softer and the trade, it's often more cautious, that second challenge is probably even harder. What was the second question? What did I learn from?
What did you learn exactly from one experience to the other?
That can I apply in Chianti Classico? So first answer, I can say that Franciacorta taught me discipline. In sparkling wine, especially traditional method sparkling wine, you cannot be vague. The category is brutally competitive. You are compared with giants like Champagne, Prosecco, with other premium sparkling wine region that I cited before, and with different consumption occasions. So positioning in that scenario is not a marketing accessory. It is like survival. What they brought with me from that experience is the idea that a wine region needs to be commercially readable. A buyer should understand very quickly, immediately, what you represent, where you sit in the market, what is your price logic, and what kind of consumer you're speaking to. In Chianti Classico, this is extremely relevant because the denomination already has fame, but fame alone is not enough anymore. Today, if you are generic, you're weak. That's it. The market is full. Importers are scared. Distributors are watching stock, and consumers are drinking less frequently. So this is factual. So the question is no longer, is this a good wine? There are good wines. The question is the wine clearly positioned enough to deserve attention, time, shelf space, and investment? That is the lesson from Franciacorta. Clarity is not simplification. Clarity is part of the strategy.
This process of creating clarity, of also making the wine worth buying and worth exploring, do you think it comes more from, let's say, the appellation in general, so from a collaborative efforts of all producers, or should it come from single producer in general? Because I think this applies also to other traditional appellations. We can think of Bordeaux, we can think of a lot of French appellations that have similar problems. So do you think this should be, yeah, as I said, a collaborative effort, or should each producer try to move individually?
I think it's a mutual job that both single producers and the movement of an appellation have to do, because a producer has to do everything is in its possibility to distinguish himself, to have strong key success factors, to give importers and distributors, to give trade reasons to choose your wines, to be distinguished easily even among consumers. But being different doesn't mean that you are automatically appealing. So being part of a movement, if there is coordination, can become a strong success factors. It becomes something that makes the difference among many different appellations that now the consumers may choose from. I believe that in this sense, both Franciacorta and Chianti Classico, they are both virtuous examples of how consortiums should act in order to valorize the category and to give space to single producer. And I noted, especially in Franciacorta, which is a relatively young category, the success behind the Franciacorta appellation is the space that the denomination has given to what a single producer was able to do better than the other. So if they found a point of differentiation that has proved to be working, the consortium jumped on it. So and take the wave and was able to capitalize it. In Chianti Classico is a little bit more difficult because the numbers of producers, it's so high that it's difficult to focus on virtuous examples on just the main players, which that doesn't apply only on quantity, but both of them works towards the valorization on what make their appellation special and what make their appellation works.
And in terms of markets, so now of course you are connected from Canada, so I would be curious to know, also comparing Franciacorta and Chianti Classico, what's the relevance of Italy versus foreign markets in sales of the appellations?
Well, on that side, we are talking about two very different scenarios. Franciacorta sells around 85% of the total production in the domestic market in Italy. It's a phenomenon that has been developing in Italy. It's been created in '61 with a growth that has been established from day one in the northern part of Italy first, and then all over the nation. But the demand for premium sparkling wine has been growing constantly throughout the decades, from 61 until nowadays. So the reason why Franciacorta is first of all an Italian phenomenon is because Italians before the people from abroad were asking for premium sparkling wine. So Franciacorta fit a precise needs. While Chianti Classico has been always something that has been connected with the Italian tradition, Italian way of drinking. So even when the tourists from abroad come to Italy, they immediately recognize Chianti Classico as something really traditional. They associate it with Italian habits. And this is why they wanted to take back this concept, this kind of lifestyle. It was something that has been forever in people's mindset all over the world. And this is the reason why Chianti Classico is a brand itself that it's known by everybody, even from non-wine drinkers. While Franciacorta is more for expert, it's for people, for passionate people that take the time to go more in depth about what Italians are drinking. And nowadays, I believe that a lot of steps have been done towards the awareness and recognition also of Franciacorta, but still, in order to be associated with a lifestyle, but still, the path is long to go in order to be recognized as a traditional Italian drink.
And which do you think are the strongest market outside from Italy for Chianti Classico?
I mean, there is no secret that the US has always been the reference point for Chianti Classico producers. The US it's always been and remain fundamental. It is still one of the most important markets for Italian wine in general. But at the moment, it is also one of the most complex to read. You have softer consumption, pressure on disposable income, uncertainty around tariffs, and a trade that is clearly more cautious than it was a few years ago. So I still consider the US essential, but for sure not easy. I personally believe that the legacy, that the existing legacy between American people and Italian tradition is strong enough to recreate a different reality, because all those trends that we are undergoing are not casual and not just related to a specific momentum. It's the way the wine business is reshaping its reality and changing different paradigm. So I believe that in general, we have to be aware of the fact that it is our precise duty to think outside of the box and to educate other market to the wine culture. To be honest, I don't see any exciting market because we need to be careful with calling exciting a new market today, because no market is in an euphoric phase. I would rather say that there are markets that remain strategically important, and Italy is one of them, because Italy is still the second biggest consumers worldwide in absolute data and per capita. I mean, and even Chianti Classico, that where the exports are much more impactful than Franciacorta, just to revive the comparison. We need to be strong in our domestic market, because being the wine that Italians drinks has an impact and an effect worldwide in a world that is more and more globalized. So it's strategically important to diversify, and even because each market is becoming more selective. And markets where the domination still has room to express itself better has to be found. As you correctly said, I'm in Canada now, and it's interesting. Canada is interesting market for different reason. It is structured, serious, and disciplined. You have not monopolies, not here, provincial system and strong control, and a very different rhythm compared to private markets. It is not a market where you can improvise, but if you work well, it can give credibility and stability. As for other market that I could cite, I would say Northern Europe remains important, because consumers and buyers tend to reward consistency. but also transparency, sustainability, and clear positioning. So it's not necessarily a fast market, but it can be a very serious one, I would say. Where Chianti Classico underperforms, in my opinion, is not awareness indeed. As I was saying, everybody knows Chianti. The underperformance happens when the denomination is reduced to Tuscan red wines. This is what we have to avoid because that is too weak. Chianti Classico today has to be communicated with more precision, and the consortium is going towards that direction. Subzones, OGA, altitude, soils, Gran Selezione, single vineyards, different style. The denomination has for sure the material to be much more sophisticated in the way it is perceived internationally. So the problem is not that Chianti Classico lacks substance. The problem is that in some market the substance is not always translated, I would say, clearly enough.
Hey listeners, just a quick interruption from me just to say that if you're liking the show, if you think the guest is great, or if you think that the episode is being useful, consider subscribing to the show on your favorite platform and leaving us 5 stars and a comment on Spotify. That's really the easiest way to help me grow the show and to bring even more amazing guests in the future. And you mentioned the US tariffs, you mentioned declining consumption. I see a lot of people actually is kind of panicking because I of course on LinkedIn I read a lot of posts and stuff on the wine market, of course. Can you give us a bit a read, your read on what's the actual impact of these market changes, these market dynamics on the Italian and in general the wine market exports and also local sales?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, the thing is not just the negative trends, but especially the uncertainty that is becoming obvious from the lack of confidence that now both importers and distributors, and I would say all the route to market among the 3-tier system in the US, they are all experiencing lack of confidence in purchasing a good amount of wines or to make new addition in a portfolio. So I would say that this is the worst fear. The fear is the worst factor, and the fear comes from the uncertainty. I think that the impact of tariffs in the US market goes far beyond the percentage itself. Of course, on paper, we are talking about duties that in some cases have been around 10 to 15% on European wines. But the real issue is not the tariff as a number. It's how the number propagates through the system. The US, is a 3-tier market. So a cost increase at a producer level is amplified through importer, distributor, and retailer margins. What starts as a small increase can easily become much bigger increase on the shelf, and that creates a very immediate problem: price positioning shift without the brand actually changing. And what we have seen over the last 12-18 months is that the first reaction of the market is not price increase, it's hesitation. Importers slow down orders, some ask to delay shipments, some try to build inventory before tariff hits, others maybe reduce exposure, and this has already had measurable consequences. Italian wine export to the US dropped at around, if I don't get wrong, 10 to 12% in value after tariffs were introduced, and even more in early 2026 compared to the pre-tariff levels. So before the consumer even feels the price increase, the system is already slowing down. Then the second phase is what happens at the points of sale. Restaurants start reconsidering their wine list, retailers adjust their assortment. We have already seen cases where imported European wines, let's say, are being partially replaced with domestic or like alternative origins wines, simply because they become easier to sell at a given price point. I believe that the risk is not only losing margin, it's losing space. And once you lose space in a market like the US, it's very difficult to regain quickly. Then I think the most underestimated impact is the psychological one. Uncertainty, as I was saying, is already a cost. When importers don't know what the tariff will be in 3 months, they become defensive, and I understand them. And when the trade becomes defensive, it doesn't reflect only on volume, but also the willingness to invest in building brands. the instinctive reaction could be the one to adjust price, and of course it can be a leverage, discount, or try to compensate volume. But that it's at the same time easy, prompt answer, but also extremely dangerous, especially in the long term. And this is because if you damage your position in a market like the US, well, then recovering later it's much harder than losing a bit of volume in the short term. So I think the real challenge today, it's not how to sell more despite tariff. It's how to protect value while navigating in a more, let's say, unstable environment.
Are you seeing a similar trend, a similar also difference in how distributors approach producers also in other markets? For example, other markets in Europe, outside the US?
Yeah, totally. Because those macro trends affects everybody in the wine business, and I believe what really became crucial is the relationship between producer and distributor, not just in the US, but in any case. So I think the producer distributor relationship is becoming one of the most delicate part overall in the wine business. This is because in theory the relationship is simple. No, the producer builds the brand and supplies the wine, while the distributor develops the market. That's in theory. But the practice is that today the pressure on both sides is much higher. The producer needs long-term brand building, price discipline, continuity, visibility. That means investment on communication, effective communication, and a certain consistency in positioning. While distributor, especially nowadays, often has short-term pressure. We are talking about pressure on inventory, on cash flow, on slower sellout. Sales teams that needs easy arguments also, because the market it's more and more competitive, and very often consumers are not as knowledgeable. They have not the same knowledge everywhere. So easy arguments, it's always a good card to play. And customers also asking for promotion, restaurants buying more cautiously. So a lot of different difficult trends. So the relationship breaks down when these two time horizons are not aligned, short term and long term. The producer is thinking in years. You know, the timeline of a producer is scheduled by the harvest, you know, which happens yearly. So you have a certain amount of production, yearly production, while the distributors is often forced to think in quarters, sometimes in months. And another point related to that is transparency. I believe that sometimes producers do not really know what is happening in the market after the wine, especially after the wine is the sellers. And sometimes distributors, vice versa, do not fully explain what is difficult. Is it price? It is style? Can be packaging? Can be competition? Can be lack of support, lack of stock? If you do not name the problem correctly, you cannot fix it. So if I could redesign the model, I would make three things much clearer from the beginning. First of all, let's say objectives, so goals, mutual goals, channel strategy, in order that both parties are aligned on how to hit the market, and especially shared responsibility. How much volume do we realistically want? I see this question often coming from the distributor, no, or importer. Sometimes importer ask for exclusivity in the market, and in the dialogue with the producer, the supplier, we as a supplier receive the question, what are you expecting from me in order to grant me the exclusivity? And I would say I strongly believe that the question should be the opposite, should come from the opposite side, because producer have to be more aware of the fact that the every market has very specific dynamics, and the people who should know those dynamics better than anyone else is your partner, who is on the market every day, and who deals with the traders every day. So since it has to be a win-win situation, when if we sell more wines in a certain market, we are both happy, as a producer, and the importer or distributors as a third party. So the goal should be the one of selling the most at the best price positioning, no? And the question should be how much we can sell given the premises that we know. So given this kind of environment of the market that me as an importer I should bring to your attention, given your competitive advantage, your point of differentiation, given your heritage that the producer should bring to the importer. Let's cross it with the market needs and demand, and what we think feasible, and how we can beat our competition or create, let's say, the so-called blue ocean, no? Because sometimes thinking outside of the box, it has to go also towards that direction. So the old model where you ship the wine and hope the market absorb it, it's not enough anymore. I think that this applies to every kind of market, and this is the key to cure the relationship, to heal the relationship between distributor and producers. It's really the key to find an effective distribution, an effective value chain.
So let's try and summarize a bit everything that we said about distribution and how markets are evolving. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of either a young winery that is just starting to export their wines, or a young export manager at his or her first experience in the role. What are, let's say, 3 key suggestions that we could give them on how to manage relationships with importers and distributors in this new normal, let's say, in this new industry?
Well, first of all, I would say that the most important thing is the empathy at the end. Every organization is made up of people, and therefore you need to find even understanding the different culture you're facing, and the different aspect of each culture, different aspect of each personality, in order to have a transparent and clear dialogue with your importer or distributor. You need to be very clear on your goal so that you can be aligned, and he can revert with what it is his idea about the market, so that you as a producer can understand how you can be a real support to them. I mean, it's no longer enough to go to your importer and say this is a good wine from Tuscany. The importer needs to understand why that wine should move, why he should buy it, and at what price, in which channel, and with what story. And you need to involve them, and making them feel part of your organization. The real key behind all successful story between distributors and producers is related to making them feel part of the same organization. When I travel the world, and it happens for me to make the so-called work with, very often with distributors, with salespeople that are every day on the street selling wines to retailers, restaurants, or end consumers. The most important aspect and the goal of each day of work with those people is not just the sales that you make on that specific day. The goal is the relationship that you are creating, is the fact that you can make some jokes with the other person, that he understands your personality, so that when he thinks about your wine, he doesn't only see a bottle of good wine, hopefully good wine, but he sees a face, a person. He sees an organization made out of Leonardo, Francesco, Diletta, just to cite some of my colleagues, and to recall what that specific brand means, which is not just good wine, high-catching packaging, or heritage. It is a matter of all those elements coordinated by a team of people that share your same goals to be competitive, to be positioned in the right way, and to be effective. So open dialogue is the key, and be authentic as a person.
And speaking about this, and also we said creating long-term value, building a brand. At Castello di Meleto, you actually invest a lot in hospitality. You have a hotel, you have a restaurant, you have actually a true destination. It's not just a winery. And so, what's the role of these kind of initiatives in the whole commercial process? Or is it just, let's say, a branding exercise, or does it also have an impact on how distributors and B2B customers perceive the brand?
That's a good question because this is a topic that is often misunderstood. Some producer thinks that the hospitality will be the next turnover generator to substitute wine sales. Others thinks that it's something necessary for communication. I believe that wine tourism becomes a real commercial channel when it stops being only a visit and start producing a long-term value. A tour can be beautiful, a tasting can be well managed, well organized, a hotel stay can be memorable, but commercially the question is what happens after? What's next? I mean, does the guest remember the wines? Do they buy again? Do they join the wine club? Do they recommend the estate? Do they become emotionally attached to the brand? For a place like Castello di Meleto, this is a huge opportunity, an immense opportunity, because the estate gives physical proof to the brand. You do not have to imagine the history, the landscape, the vineyards, the castle. You are there. You can just live it, experiencing it. I think that the challenge is to convey the most authentic experience possible to people visiting your estate. And Castello di Meleto is it where we invest the most, and for investment I'm referring to not only money investment, but to energy, focus, attention. And then these works remain central. We strongly want that the people stepping up the doors of the castle really can be able to breathe an authentic experience from Gaiole in Chianti, from the place that gave birth to the castle, that comes from the 13th century, and where you can see different layers of history, from the medieval part to the Renaissance until nowadays with a more modern touch, But all this, I think, it can work if wine remains central. If tourism becomes just accommodation or events or a beautiful Tuscan postcard, then it is nice but not necessarily strategic for the wine brand. The real conversion happens when the guest leaves with a stronger understanding of the wines, not only with beautiful pictures. This comes from having the brand coherent among all and consistent among all your business unit. And we are a complex reality because we are wine producers. We have a beautifully preserved medieval castle, middle-aged castle. We are on a hotel. We are a wedding venue. So this is one of the most delicate questions for an estate like ours, but for many other estates. On one side, having a castle, hospitality, events, and wedding is a huge advantage. Of course it is. 14,000 people comes every year in the castle, and it's a number that it's impressive, It gives the brand a physical dimension, and that is very important. Having the possibility to welcome our partners from around the world in a castle, it's priceless, It gives a physical dimension that many wineries do not have. It creates memories, it creates emotion, it makes the estate more than a label. On the other side, there is a risk, because you can become a beautiful destination with wine attached, and instead of a serious wine estate with a destination around it. So consistency comes from hierarchy. Wine has to remain the center. the castle, the hospitality, the events, the wedding should all reinforce the credibility and desirability of the wine. They should not compete with it. And therefore, in practical terms, this means that every touch point, every brand touch point should speak the same language. The way people are welcomed, the wines poured, the story told, the visual identity, the level of service, the tone of voice, the tone of communication. The brand becomes diluted when the experiences are strong but disconnected, while it becomes stronger when every experience brings people back to the same core: the estate, the vineyards, and the wines.
Do you see in your experience these kind of initiatives are also more attractive for, let's say, younger consumers? So maybe younger people tend to first visit the winery before purchasing the wine. They like to go to events. So do you see actually this kind of strategies attracting younger people towards the winery?
I do believe that younger people are for sure attracted by all of this feature, because younger people are generally the most curious ones. They are the category that it's more attentive to what's exciting now, what's next, what they all want to travel, and they all want to see the world. And so they want to know from each area, even those areas that it's forgotten by God, that is difficult to reach. In their mindset, especially in the younger generation, their mindset is to have something to offer. So they are attracted, but by a location, by a premium estates, by premium and historic wine, but not automatically. So I do not think that younger consumers reject history. I think that they reject history when it's presented as authority without relevance. So history, when a state cannot simply say, we have been here for centuries, we've been here forever, and expect that to be enough for a younger consumer. History has to feel alive. It has to connect with quality, authenticity, again, experience, sustainability, sometimes design, hospitality, and more than everything, a sense of place. So young consumers are also more selective. They may drink less often, but when they do, engage. And they can be curious, as I was saying, experimental, and willing to spend more if they feel it's meaningful. No, so the issue is not that young people do not care about historic wine. The issue is that historic wine often speaks with an old vocabulary. That's the main issue. So the opportunity is to make heritage feel relevant without making it artificial, and that is not easy. Don't get me wrong, but it is where a place like Chianti Classico can be very strong.
And just to close a bit the circle on like sales, marketing, and distribution, I've also the season of the big trade fairs has just closed. I think we had Vinitaly a couple of weeks ago. So based on your experience from this year and from the past years, do you think these kind of fairs still make sense for producers? Do you think they're getting a bit too crowded? So what's in general your view on the actual sense that these fairs make for producers?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, because there can be many point of view, but personally I think that trade fairs are still extremely important, but they have changed. I mean, in the past, being present at a fair was already a statement. Today, presence alone means very little. Everyone is there. Everyone has meetings. Everyone can be busy. So the value of a fair depends much more on preparation and follow up than on the days of the fair themselves. And again, you have a short time zone in order to convey the right attitude, the right value proposition to the people that you meet. You know, this is why it's extremely important to be consistent, to be aware of who you are and what you're looking for, and about the trends of the market. You cannot expect that since you pay high fee to Vinitaly or Provine or Vinexpo, that buyers will organically comes to you and be focused on your wines, on your proposal, just because you're displaying them. It's a matter of understanding the environment and understanding what comes before and after a wine fair. So it's the connection you create and how you manage and how you cure this connection. Vinitaly, for instance, is not only for this in Verona. It is what happens before and after, much more than the days itself. The meetings you set, the conversation you continue, the market signal you collect, the mode you perceive from importers, agents, competitors. These years, for instance, what I found interesting was not just individual meetings, but the general atmosphere. More caution, more attention to stock, more pressure on pricing, and welcoming people that they all have the same mood, so they are all in a hurry. We were all making this similar conversation, so it is 100 different conversation touching the same topics, and you need to adapt each conversation to the structure of each single market by maintaining your personality and be attentive to what the stakeholders it's communicating to you. So I also felt a desire for a clearer project and stronger narratives. So the people were more eager to listen about the project that we had on brand repositioning, on brand awareness, or project that can get the attention of a wider audience, not just buy my Chianti Classico because it's gonna be the same good quality wine but less expensive. They want to know how we are transmitting and convey the narrative behind the bottle and adapting to a more modern audience, to different needs that are changing. Nowadays, a buyer from India has different needs from a buyer from the US. I mean, in both occasions, education is always crucial, but the way you approach it is different. At the same time, as I was saying, you need to be consistent. So yes, fairs are crowded because, and this is an extremely good sign. It means that the wine business, it's something that always highlight curiosity, but the problem is not crowding. The problem is going there without a precise commercial intention. A fair should not be a showroom. And this is the tricky part. It should be a market intelligence tool. So the Vinitaly should be all year long. I mean, you have an experience at Vinitaly when you see face to face a person that you rarely see, but that experience has to be related to the email exchange that you do throughout the year, to the phone calls that you make. So Vinitaly has to be the highest moment of a dialogue. No? It has to be for me Vinitaly like Wine Paris, of course, as well, or Vinexpo Asia, or all the other fairs that are even the smaller ones. Those has to be opportunity to look the other in the eyes and find yourself a connection. And I believe that there are different interpretations on wine fairs. It's obvious that the Wine Paris is focusing a lot on the internationalization, while Vinitaly wants to remark to be the absolute reference point of Italian wine, both in Italy and now in a more structured proposal also abroad. I believe that different wine fairs can fit different needs. This is why it's important to look at ourselves as a producer and understand what are we looking for. And this is how you can interpret correctly a wine fair and decide whether to attend or not.
I will move towards the end of the interview. I would have 1,000 other questions, but I'm afraid we're a bit time constrained. So
Yeah, sorry, I spoke too much.
No, that's perfect. So I have this final section. It's called Quickfire, where I will ask
Okay.
you three very quick questions, and I would like you to answer in as few words as possible. So it should be a very quick exchange. The first thing that comes to mind should be your answer. So the
Okay.
first question, the first question would be: it's 2036, so 10 years from today, what's happened to the wine market in general, but also what's happened to Castello di Meleto?
Okay, I hope that this industry will be less focused on volume and more on clarity and identity. And I see that Castello di Meleto will be a winery that was able to express its value throughout the history, not just thanks to its history. So to have firm and well recognized point of differentiation that are appreciated from a wide range of consumers.
Let's say you wake up tomorrow and you have a limited budget, so you don't have money constraints. What's the campaign or marketing strategy that you would run?
I would say that I would not start with advertising. I would build a global experience program, bringing the right people to the estate, top importers, sommelier, premium retailers, wine club members, and selected final consumers. In wine, proximity still converts better than noise. If people understand the place, walk through the vineyards, sleep at the castle, taste the wines in context, and meet the team, the relationship becomes much deeper than any campaign. Then I will use digital to amplify that experience, not replace it.
And let's say you wake up tomorrow and you receive another email together with the one where you have a limited budget that says you inherited a winery. That should be, let's say, a very traditional winery with budget, an established history. Which would be the first three things you do tomorrow morning?
I will immediately check on my bank account because I'm gonna have severe debts now. No, I would say that I would make an internal analysis to understand what are my strengths, and I will ask people to come and have a dialogue with me about the winery to see different kind of point of view on how the winery can express itself, and I will try to make the wine that I like. I will really focus to make something I would be glad to drink, and to build something that people that share my same values can recognize.
And the final one, you can't answer Castello di Meleto. Which is your favorite wine? or drink? Maybe you have some other.
No, I mean, I would say that my favorite drink is wine. I'm gonna go with champagne. So boring, classic.
So you're saying no to Franciacorta and yes to champagne.
No, I mean, I say yes to wine in general, but champagne is the one that got me for the first time. So I have a recognition to give champagne because when it was the first wine that really impressed me, and but I have to say that the Franciacorta actually. To be honest, the Berlucchi, the company I was working with, is the first wine I have a photo with. I was just 7 years old, and there is a photo of my grandmother with a bottle of Berlucchi in my hand. So,
wow, okay.
most likely it was Italian sparkling wine. But the first memory I have. I remember is I was hit by how good champagne tasted, but I was 14 then, not 7 years old.
Leonardo, it was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Giovanni. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much for your time and for the chat that we shared.